So it's interesting in your story because you said everything just imploding helped you to lower your expectations on yourself. And I think that's something that most moms, not that we want everyone's lives to implode, but we have really high expectations of ourselves. And you write about this in the book and you talk about the guilt, right? And you say this word that how women felt in their inability to subsume themselves fully into early motherhood, and it was guilty. They felt guilty for continuing to work or leaving their children in the care of others, and they felt guilty about leaving work and feeling lost, or never having a job they felt was a career in the first place. They felt guilty about having postpartum depression. They felt guilty about not living up to perfectly heteronormative, naturalistic, pristine ideals of their communities. And even when they were deeply aware of the flaws in society's ideals, those ideals got into their heads. And I think that's so true, this like overwhelming guilt. And it's just like, as you've explored this, what have you discovered?
So I think it's a number of things. The reason I focus on American moms is because I do think it is particularly American because we are such an individualistic society that everybody,
Toxically
but
so.
mothers in particular, feel like if anything goes wrong, it's my fault. It's all on me. It is all on me and to shape this child. I am responsible. No one's going to help me. No one should help me. If I need help, there's something wrong with me. So I think that's one thing to know. It is not like this everywhere. Like you said, your friend in the Netherlands, there in the book, I include some research with moms in other European countries, and the mindset is just completely different. It's not, what am I doing for my kids? It's like, how am I being with my kids? Am I just spending time with them? That seems like that's the bar for being a good mom. And if that were the bar, I think we would all feel a lot better about ourselves. So it's knowing that some of these expectations and feelings are culturally constructed here specifically. So that's one. I think number two, and this is just easier said than done, it's having trusted friends that are supportive and make you feel good about yourself and good about your mothering, and that you can vent to, and that are not going to judge you, and that are there for you in ways that are material. So, after 10 years in this neighborhood, we have multiple families that we are close enough to say, like, I'm in a pinch. Can you pick up my kid from school? We have a family emergency. Can you do X, Y, and Z? And I would feel totally comfortable doing that. But that takes years. Unless if you're move back to your hometown and you have that, that's amazing. But so many people don't live near family or don't live near communities that they're already entrenched in. And as much as you can, building a group of supportive friends, and they don't even have to be moms, just people who are going to support you in this journey, immeasurably helpful. Because your spouse, if you do have a spouse or a partner, they can't be everything. You need something outside that. And I do think that there is something specific to the challenges that moms face. My husband's totally empathetic. And the best thing about him is we've been together a long time. So we started dating when I was 23 and he was 24. And at this point, he can see me and he can see my face and he can see when I am just done. And he will say, why don't you go upstairs and lie down? Like, why don't you go get out of here, go for a walk? Just having a partner that can be that perceptive and see when you're at your wit's end, or that you can verbalize that to, just be like, I've had a day. I need you to be the main dude when you come home. I think that's something else that is, at least for me, I can only speak for myself, like priceless. Yes, just knowing that my partner is a real partner and we're in it together and he is really seeing me in those moments. And I do the same for him, of course, when he's just had it with the kids. I'm like, go to the gym, get out of here. Don't worry, I got it. I think that's just incredibly important.
Yeah. And to go back to that whole building a supportive friend network and a community and all that stuff, that's so important. But then to also go back to the situation, wouldn't it be nice if we could all have a little less anxiety? I mean, and you talk about this, that anxiety, shame, jealousy, shame, and guilt are like the 4 horsemen of the mompocalypse, which I think is like
I have to give credit to the psychologist Elise DeMarco, who really gave a lot of good advice on that, and she is the one who really focused up on those 4 factors that just affect so many moms and make our day-to-day worse than it needs to be.
Yeah, I'm not super political on the podcast generally, but if we had universal health care or something like that, like if we could just relieve some of the stress of I have to have a job for that, if we had some more safety net for that, like it is that one of the big things, like we talk about the mental health crisis being like enormous right now, not just for moms, but for teens and for all these different people. And if we could just reduce the number of things we had to be anxious about, that would go a long way to help the problem. It seems so
Yeah.
obvious to me. And it just is like, why is it so hard for us to figure this out? I don't know.
Yeah, I actually think it's quite tragic that some of this stuff has been so politicized because I mentioned this in a lot of interviews because it just is so illuminating. For a column I did, I talked to a pollster who mostly does focus groups with Republicans. And she was telling me that whenever she does focus groups about paid leave, it is very popular among everybody. And she gave the example of a dad who works an hourly job. He's conservative. He lives in a rural area. And all he wants is paid leave so that he can support his wife who just had a C-section and she can't lift anything. There's no nursing. So you can't hire a nurse because rural areas have nursing shortages. They don't have family nearby that can help out. All he wants to do is be there for his wife. That's not political. I think that's just human. And so I think it is something that, yes, the nitty gritty of what the laws are going to be and who pays for it and where that funding comes from, that's going to be political sausage making and how it gets figured out. But simply the desire and the need to be able to be there for family members without going broke, I don't think that's political, or at least
Yeah.
it shouldn't be.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. So if we, yes, Jessica and I are fixing the world.